Let's begin with the update on the Moscow terror attack. Even as the rescuers cleared the debris at the Moscow concert hall, the head of the Russian investigative committee visited the massacre site on Sunday. The committee chief inspected the damaged music venue and met with the investigators working at the site. Russia lowered flags at half-mast for a day of mourning after the deadly attack. Russian President Vladimir Putin declared a national day of mourning after pledging to track down and punish all those behind the attack. Putin said 11 people have been detained, including the 4 gunmen who fled the concert hall and made their way to the Bryansk region, southwest of Moscow. Russia's Federal Security Service said the gunmen had contacts in Ukraine and were captured near the border. According to local news agencies, the suspects have been brought to Moscow and may appear in court later in the day. Hundreds of residents queued outside a blood donation center in the city of Moscow. Those waiting in line said they came to the blood donation center voluntarily because they wanted to show their support and solidarity.
Вы можете увидеть, сколько людей здесь стоит с 8 утра для того, чтобы сдать кровь, потому что каждый считает это необходимым своим долгом. Люди, пострадавшие, погибшие, это часть нашей одной большой семьи. Поэтому мы здесь.
Moscow's Emergency Situations Ministry posted a video showing equipment dismantling the damaged music venue to give access to rescuers. The footage showed the concert hall turned into a blackened ruin. Our rescuers continue to search the damaged building. Some families still do not know if their loved ones are still alive. Shocked Russians took flowers to the Crocus City concert hall to pay their respects. Mourners hung flowers on fences and piled them on the ground at a short distance from the concert hall. Amid scenes of grief, the firefighters pulled bodies from the rubble and worked to put out the flames. There are fears that the death toll may further rise. Fred Weir is a journalist and political commentator. Mr. Weir is joining us live from Moscow. Good to see you, sir. Help me understand this. President Putin says there's a very high possibility that Ukraine was involved in the terror attack and not ISIS, despite the group claiming responsibility. And now Ukrainian president saying that Putin should deal with terrorism from within, a statement that the US is backing and saying that it was indeed ISIS. So who's saying what and who should be believed at this point?
Well, I don't think there is a clear or final resolution of this, but it seems most likely that this is the scenario that Russian security experts have been warning about for years, and that is if Taliban comes back to power in Afghanistan, as they now have, it will once again become an incubator of extremism and terrorism that will infiltrate into Russia via the ex-Soviet Central Asian states like Tajikistan, and indeed these 4 terrorists that were captured are Tajik citizens, I mean not Russians at all. So I mean I understand Russians, they want to reach for Ukraine as the explanation. It's wishful thinking more than anything that's evidence-backed. And if they are going to make that accusation, I think they'd better present an awful lot of solid, convincing evidence, because it's not the sort of thing that Ukrainians do. And they do some nasty things like assassinating Russian journalists and trying to blow up the Crimea bridge and so on. But this is a different order of magnitude, and the modus operandi of that massacre was much more up ISIS alley. We've seen it in other places, and we know that ruthless slaughtering of people face to face is what those Islamist terrorists do.
Okay.
Not Ukrainians or Russians, by the way. So I hope that the Russians will be sensible about this, but it could be. I mean, it could be that these terrorists had an escape route or something that they'd planned out through Belarus or Ukraine, because where they were caught is close to both those borders.
Mr. Weir, let's talk about the attackers now, and you've mentioned it. Russia says all the detained attackers are foreigners. Will that have any impact on the probe?
No, I think it's they're going to be subjected to massive interrogations, and everything is going to come out. I don't know when we'll get the full story, if we ever will, or how it might be curated. But I think the Russians will, and you see it already happening, try to weave this into anti-Ukrainian propaganda, because they are at war with Ukraine and bombing Ukrainian cities every day, and Ukraine is firing back with drones, sometimes drones fired at Moscow and other Russian cities. But I think, I mean, this is my opinion, that this is just one of those black swan events. It came out of left field. We haven't had any serious terrorism in Moscow for over 20 years, so no one was expecting it. Everyone was complacent. That concert venue had no protection at all. The security guards at the door weren't even armed with guns. This will probably change now. Moscow will go into a real security lockdown, which it hasn't experienced in 2 years of warfare. Being a capital of a city at war, it looked more like a peacetime place for these past 2 years, and I guess in the future it won't.
Okay, let's then talk about that propaganda then, because there is suspicion of Ukraine being involved in the attack. Many speculate that the going will get tough for Ukraine in the battlefield, meaning the war will escalate. Your thoughts, quickly.
Well, yes, I think the war will escalate. The going will get tough for Ukraine. Russia is preparing new armies to launch a summer offensive, but that trajectory was already set. It probably, hopefully, won't be affected by this terrorist event. But yes, I think the war is going to heat up considerably in the months to come.
All right, I've been talking to Fred Weir, who's a journalist and also a political commentator. Mr. Fred Weir, thank you very much for talking to us today.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.